No, yeah, I know Alex is such a great player and such a fighter, so I knew it was going to be a really tough match.
Third set, 2-0. Alex Eala is at the baseline in Mason, Ohio, tossing the ball into a Cincinnati sky that has already been interrupted by rain once this week. And across the net from her is a Wimbledon finalist who is minutes away from becoming the 6th top 10 player in a row to lose to a 21-year-old from Manila. The crowd at the Linda Family Tennis Center is loud in a way American crowds are not usually loud for the visiting player. There is a Filipino corner in there somewhere. There always is now. And what nobody in that stadium knows yet, not the fans holding their phones up, not the commentators calibrating their tone, not even Eala herself as she bounces the ball 3 times, is that in about 90 minutes, the woman across the net is going to take a microphone in her hand and give Alex Eala a title that no ranking system has printed next to her name yet. She is going to call her a fighter, and the tennis world is going to notice. Here is what happened on August 17, 2026, and why you are hearing about it today. World number 10 Amanda Anisimova, coming off her run to the Wimbledon final earlier this summer, played Alex Eala for the first time in their careers. Eala was the number 17 seed. She entered the match on a 5-match winning streak against top 10 opponents, one of the most improbable streaks on the WTA Tour this year, and she had just 2 weeks earlier become the first Filipino in history to win a WTA Tour singles title. The match went 3 sets, and what Anisimova said afterward, with the trophy path in Cincinnati opening in front of her and Eala walking off court behind her, is what this entire story is built around. The first thing you should understand about this match is that it should not have been close. On paper, Anisimova is the world number 10. She reached a Grand Slam final 6 weeks ago. Her career high ranking, achieved this January, is number 3. Her game is built for hard courts, flat, early, aggressive, the kind of first-strike tennis that eats up a slower ball and turns rallies into 2-shot exchanges. Eala, at world number 20 entering the tournament, came in with a live projected ranking of 18, which would have been another career high, and a game built almost in opposition to Anisimova's. She is left-handed. She serves with less pace but more variety. She moves. She absorbs. She waits for the moment when a big hitter takes one swing too many, misses long by 2 feet, and then she pounces. On paper, this is a mismatch of styles where the higher-ranked, more seasoned Grand Slam finalist should close it out in an hour and change. That is not what happened. What happened was Eala won the first set 6-4. She dictated. She held her serve through games that were supposed to be Anisimova service breaks waiting to happen. She stayed in rallies longer than a Wimbledon finalist wanted to stay in them. And when the first set ended and the players sat down and toweled off, the story of the match was already refusing to be the story anyone had predicted. Anisimova herself, 2 days before this match, had walked off court after beating Zanapi Sonmez and been asked about the upcoming meeting with Eala. Her answer is worth quoting carefully because it becomes the first real evidence in this story. She said, "She's been having such an incredible season, incredible year, very great player with a lot of fans, so I'm really looking forward to that." And then she added something even more specific. She said Eala had everything it takes to go really far 2 days before the match, not after, before. That distinction matters, and we will come back to it. Let's stay with the match because the first cluster of evidence in this story is really about what Eala did on court before anyone had to say anything about her at all. She arrived in Cincinnati with a 9-4 career record against top 10 opponents. 7 of those wins came in 2026 alone. She had beaten Elena Rybakina. She had beaten Alina Svitolina. She had beaten world number 3 Jessica Pegula in the final of the Washington Open on August 3rd, coming from a set down to win 4-6, 6-4, 6-0. A final set bagel against the top seed to claim the first WTA Tour singles title in the history of Philippine tennis. She had reached the round of 16 in Toronto, and she had walked into Cincinnati as a top 20 player for the first time, with a projected ranking creeping toward 18 after her second-round win over Elena Gabriela Ruse, who retired down 6-1, 3-0. That is the resume she carried onto the court against Anisimova. Not a resume of promise. A resume of proof. And the atmosphere reflected it. The pre-match reporting noted that Anisimova was already anticipating a very packed stadium, and knew the crowd would not necessarily be on her side despite the tournament being played on American soil. Cincinnati is not a Filipino tennis stronghold. It became one for a few hours that Monday afternoon. The visiting players' fans took it over. Anisimova, to her credit, said before the match that she was really looking forward to that, and the crowd stayed through the weather delay that had complicated her second-round match. She was gracious before she needed to be gracious. Which brings us to the second cluster. The second cluster of evidence in this story is about the middle of the match, because if the first set belonged to Eala, the second set is where the entire outcome hinged. And the person who identified the pivot most clearly was Anisimova herself. In the sixth game of the second set, Anisimova served and double-faulted 3 times in a single service game. 3 against a player who feasts on rhythm disruption, against a lefty who was already reading her second serve. And she held. She held that game despite giving Eala 3 free players she had just beaten. She could have said many things. She could have said, "I found my level." But she didn't. Points on serve. After that hold, the match tilted. She broke back. She won the set 6-4. And then, in the third, Eala broke early and led 2 games to love. The frozen moment we opened with. And Anisimova, according to post-match reporting, found her rhythm in the third game of the deciding set and did not lose it again. 6 of the next 7 games went to the American. The final score was 4-6, 6-4, 6-2. The 5-match top 10 winning streak was over. Let's pause here for a moment, because this is the point in the story where the temptation is to talk about what Eala lost. And that is not the right frame. A 21-year-old player in her first ever meeting with a Wimbledon finalist on that finalist home surface, in that finalist home country, took the first set, led the third, and lost by 2 breaks to someone ranked 10 places higher than her. That is not a collapse. That is a scouting report being written in real time by 2 players who had never seen each other's tennis in a match environment before. Anisimova adjusted. Eala did not have quite enough time to counter-adjust. That is the honest story of the middle of that match, and it is the story that made what came next so important. Because the third cluster is the microphone. And this is where we arrive at the moment that this entire script exists to talk about. Amanda Anisimova, having just won a 3-set battle she had every right to win comfortably and did not, took the on-court interview microphone in front of a Cincinnati crowd that had spent 2 hours getting louder for the.
She could have said, "I made too many errors early." She could have said, "She played above herself." Those are the standard, ungenerous, faintly dismissive things that higher-ranked players sometimes say when they have been pushed further than expected. But she said none of them. What Amanda Anisimova said, quoted from her post-match interview and reported by the Philippine Daily Inquirer and confirmed on the official WTA video, was this: "Alex is such a great player and such a fighter, so I knew it was really going to be a tough match." And then she continued, "I'm really proud of this performance for being able to find a way and kind of push myself there in the middle of the match. I'm really happy with the way I was able to find my tennis and start fighting. It was a really, really tough match and credit to her, she was really playing some great tennis." That is not consolation. That is confirmation. And that is why fans took notice. The words matter. Great player is a compliment anyone can offer. Fighter is different. Fighter is a peer-to-peer designation in tennis. Fighter means I recognize you as someone who does not go away. Fighter means I had to earn this. When a world number 10 hands you that word on the record, in front of an American crowd, after you have taken her to 3 sets at her home tournament, she is not simply being polite. She is telling the tour what she thinks, and she is doing it publicly on camera, with the ranking gap between the 2 of you still 10 places wide and beginning to look narrower every month. The authority behind those words is what makes them stick. Anisimova is not a rising player trying to be gracious to build her image. She is a 2-time Grand Slam finalist. She was ranked world number 3 as recently as January of this year. She reached the Wimbledon final just 6 weeks before this match. She has beaten the best players on this tour, and she has lost to the best players on this tour. She knows, with the precision that only elite players know, what a fighter actually looks like across a net. When Amanda Anisimova says Alex is a fighter, she is not describing one moment. She is describing a category of player, and she is placing Eala inside that category on the record. That is what fans reacted to on social media that night. That is what the Filipino tennis press led with the next morning. That is why the phrase traveled the way it did. Not because it was surprising that Anisimova was gracious. Anisimova has been gracious about Eala before. It was because of the specific word she chose, fighter. That is not a courtesy word. It is a scouting word. And once you understand that, you understand why this particular sentence, spoken on August 17th in Ohio, matters beyond the scoreline it was attached to. The stakes of this story extend well beyond one match and one microphone. Alex Eala is now the first Filipino man or woman to hold a WTA Tour singles title. She is the first Filipino to break into the WTA Top 20. She is the first Filipino to defeat top 10 opponents, and she has now done so 7 times in a single calendar year. She is the first Filipino to reach the 4th round of a Grand Slam. Her career record against top 10 players stands at 9 wins and 4 losses. A winning record against the best players in the sport at 21 years old, with her entire career still ahead of her. For context, that is not a rising player statistic. That is a top 15 player statistic being posted by someone still officially ranked outside the top 15. The rankings are catching up to the resume. They usually do eventually. And when Amanda Anisimova, herself once the youngest player in the top 10, looks across a net at a 21-year-old and describes her as a fighter, she is not making a prediction about who Alex might become. She is making an observation about who Alex already is. That distinction is the entire story. The tennis world is not being asked to imagine Alex Eala's future anymore. It is being asked to reckon with her present. And in less than a week, on August 24th, that reckoning continues in New York, where Eala enters the US Open main draw with direct entry. No wild card. No qualifying. No asterisk. Just a ranking that put her name in the field. Which brings us finally back to the freeze frame. 3rd set. Cincinnati. 2 games to love. What Eala lost that afternoon was not the match. She lost a streak. She lost a set of trajectory numbers that projected her ranking a couple of places higher. Those are recoverable losses, and the calendar to recover them is short. 6 days until the US Open begins, with the entire hardcourt closing stretch of the season still ahead of her. What she did not lose, and what the entire construction of this story depends on, is the argument. She did not lose the argument that she belongs in the conversation with the top 10. The Wimbledon finalist she played that day settled that argument on her behalf, in her own words, from her own microphone. Alex Eala herself, at the time of this report, had not yet given a full public reaction to the loss, and we are not going to invent one for her. What she does next will speak louder than what she says. So let's close where we started, on the microphone. Because the image this story leaves you with should not be the scoreline. The scoreline was 4-6, 6-4, 6-2, and it will be a footnote by the time the US Open second week arrives. The image should be Amanda Anisimova, still breathing hard from a 3-set match she was not supposed to have to work that hard for, choosing the word fighter. Choosing it on purpose. Choosing it with the authority of a world number 10, a Wimbledon finalist, and a former world number 3. And in choosing it, doing something that no ranking list has done yet. She named Alex Eala as a member of the room. Not the room of promising juniors. Not the room of breakout stories. The room of players who make top 10 players fight for a full 3 sets on their home surface, in front of their home crowd. That room is small. It has maybe 15 or 20 players in it at any given moment on the WTA Tour. And on August 17, 2026, in Mason, Ohio, in an on-court interview that lasted less than 2 minutes, one of the players already in that room turned toward the door and told the tennis world that the 21-year-old from Manila was in there too. She belongs. That is the sentence Anisimova spoke without ever using those 2 words. That is the sentence the fans heard, even though the fans have been saying it for months. And that is the sentence this channel has been building toward across every match report, every ranking update, and every top 10 upset since the season began. If you have been with us for that build, thank you. If you are new here, subscribe because Alex Eala plays her US Open opener on August 24th, and we will be right back here breaking it down the moment the last ball is struck. She belongs. And now the rest of the tour is on the record saying so.